My name is Anna, 37, and as I park my car outside my parents' suburban home, I glance in the rearview mirror at my two beautiful children. Lily, 10, adjusts her headband, while Noah, 8, clutches the handmade card they created for their grandparents. 3 years after my divorce, I still struggle with family gatherings, but today I arrived with hope and homemade apple pie. That hope shattered the moment my father opened the door, looked at us with cold eyes, and smirked. "Your presence always makes things harder. You should leave." My sister Jasmine laughed behind him while my children froze in confusion. As tears threatened, I grabbed their hands and turned away. If you're watching this from somewhere you feel truly accepted, give this a like and subscribe, as I share what happened next. Growing up in the Thompson household meant understanding that love was always conditional. My father, Richard, built a successful investment firm from nothing, and he expected his family to reflect his achievement. Every decision, from the clothes we wore to the friends we made, fell under his scrutiny. "Appearances matter, Anna," he would remind me whenever I questioned his rules. "People judge our entire family by your behavior." My mother, Diana, was beautiful, polished, and perpetually accommodating to my father's demands. She orchestrated perfect dinner parties and charity functions while maintaining a spotless home. When my father's criticism became too harsh, she would later comfort me in private. "Your father just wants what's best for you," she would say, smoothing my hair. "Try a little harder to make him proud." Her love, while warmer than my father's, still came with the unspoken expectation that I would eventually conform. Then there was my sister Jasmine, 2 years younger than me but infinitely more adept at navigating our father's expectations. She pursued business administration, joined the right clubs, dated appropriate young men from good families, and never questioned authority. While I struggled under our father's critical gaze, Jasmine thrived in it, collecting his rare praise like precious gems. "See how your sister handles herself, Anna," became a common refrain throughout my teenage years. "Why can't you follow her example?" My rebellion began small. Art classes instead of accounting, vintage clothes rather than designer labels. It escalated when I met James during my sophomore year of college. He was studying music education, came from a middle-class family without connections, and worst of all, in my father's eyes, encouraged my artistic pursuits. "This boy will lead you nowhere," my father declared after meeting James for the first time. "He lacks ambition." But James showed me what unconditional support felt like. He attended every one of my small art exhibitions, celebrated my creativity, and never once suggested I become someone else to earn his affection. When he proposed after graduation, my father issued an ultimatum: choose the family path, or choose James. I chose James. The wedding was small, with my mother attending, briefly claiming a headache halfway through. Jasmine came for the ceremony, but left before the reception, explaining she had a work commitment. My father didn't come at all. Surprisingly, over the next few years, a tentative reconciliation began. When James secured a position as a high school music teacher, and I started selling artwork through local galleries, my father seemed to soften slightly. "At least you're supporting yourselves," he conceded during our first invited holiday meal after 2 years of estrangement. When I became pregnant with Lily, something shifted. My mother was overjoyed at becoming a grandmother, and even my father showed unexpected interest. By the time Noah was born 2 years later, we had established a fragile peace. James learned to navigate my father's judgmental comments, and I accepted that our relationship would never be warm, merely cordial. Then the recession hit. James's school cut back arts programs, reducing his hours. My art sales plummeted. As our financial situation grew precarious, my father's attitude shifted from grudging acceptance back to disapproval. Each family gathering became a minefield of subtle digs about financial responsibility and poor life choices. "I could have set you up with a proper career," he would remind me while carving the turkey at Thanksgiving. "You wouldn't be struggling now if you'd listened." The stress took its toll on our marriage. James and I began arguing about money, about my family, about everything. After 10 years together, we separated, then divorced. My father didn't even attempt to hide his satisfaction. "Finally coming to your senses," he said when I told them the marriage was over. To my surprise, he offered financial help during the divorce. A down payment for a small house so the children would have stability, help with legal fees, a joint bank account for emergencies that my mother would occasionally deposit money into. I accepted his help reluctantly, knowing it came with invisible strings, but needing the support for my children's sake. The post-divorce family gatherings grew increasingly tense. Jasmine, now married to the son of one of my father's business partners with 2 perfect children and a massive house, became the standard against which my life was explicitly measured. Her husband Bradley's financial success was frequently contrasted with my unfortunate situation. Each visit left me emotionally drained, but I persisted because Lily and Noah adored their grandparents despite everything. My children experienced a different side of my parents. My father would bring them expensive gifts and take them for ice cream. My mother taught Lily to bake and attended Noah's soccer games. They never witnessed the cutting remarks made just out of their earshot or understood why Mommy sometimes cried in the car afterward. "Why doesn't Grandpa hug you like he hugs us?" Lily asked once. The innocent question broke my heart. This year's holiday brunch held particular significance. I'd recently secured a position teaching art at a community center that promised more financial stability. For once, I had good news to share, achievements that even my father might approve of. The children had spent hours creating handmade cards. I'd woken at dawn to bake my mother's favorite apple pie from scratch. "Do you think Grandpa will like my card?" Noah asked that morning, carefully adding another sticker to his creation. I drew his boat. "Of course he will," I assured him, ignoring the knot of anxiety in my stomach. "Everyone will love your cards." Lily emerged from her room wearing the dress my mother had given her for her birthday, her hair carefully brushed. "I look like a lady, right, Mom? Like Grandma likes." Looking at their hopeful faces, I pushed away my own apprehension. For them, I would endure whatever came. We packed the car with gifts and pie and set off for what I hoped might finally be a turning point in our family relationship. I couldn't have been more wrong. The moment remains frozen in my memory. My father standing in the doorway, his tall frame blocking the entrance to the warmth inside. The sound of holiday music and conversations spilling out around him. The smell of roasting turkey and cinnamon. The weight of the pie in my hands. My children's excited breath forming small clouds in the December air. "Your presence always makes things harder," he said, not bothering to lower his voice. "You should leave." For a moment I thought I'd misheard. But then Jasmine appeared behind him, champagne flute in hand, and laughed. That familiar tinkling laugh she'd used since childhood, whenever I was being scolded. My mother remained invisible somewhere in the house, not coming to the door. "Dad," I managed to say, my voice small. "We brought pie. The kids made cards. We're having a nice peaceful brunch," he continued, his voice taking on the stern tone I remembered from childhood reprimands. "Bradley's parents are here. Important connections. I don't need your situation creating awkwardness." Lily pressed against my leg. "Grandpa? We came for brunch. I'm wearing the pretty dress." My father barely glanced at her. "Perhaps another time would be better, Anna, when you've sorted yourself out more." Noah stepped forward, bravely, card extended. "But we made you—" "Richard, who is it?" My mother's voice called from inside, but she still didn't come to the door. "No one important," my father called back over his shoulder. Then to us, "You should go now." The door closed. Just like that. No goodbye, no explanation to the children. Just rejection, plain and absolute. "Mom?" Noah's voice cracked as he turned to me, card still clutched in his small hand. I grabbed both children by the shoulders and turned them back toward the car, moving quickly before they could see the tears welling in my eyes. My hands shook as I buckled them in the pie abandoned on the passenger seat. "Why doesn't Grandpa want us to come in?" Lily asked, confusion clouding her face. "Did we do something bad?" No, sweetheart. I managed starting the car. Grandpa is just having a difficult day. Sometimes grown-ups have complicated feelings that have nothing to do with you. As I pulled away from the curb, Noah pressed his face against the window, still watching the house as if the door might reopen. "But why doesn't Grandpa want us?" he whispered. That simple question broke something inside me. Tears spilled down my cheeks as I drove, trying to find words that would protect my children from the truth while still honoring their feelings. "Grandpa loves you very much," I said, the lie tasting bitter. "But sometimes he doesn't know how to show love properly. It's not about you. It's never about you." We drove in silence for several minutes, the only sound my occasional sniffles as I tried to compose myself. Finally, I pulled into the parking lot of Denny's, a place we usually visited as a special treat. "How about we have our own holiday brunch?" I suggested, forcing brightness into my voice. "With pancakes and hot chocolate? Maybe they'll even have those special peppermint ones you like, Noah." Their faces brightened slightly at the prospect, though confusion still lingered in their eyes. Inside the restaurant, I ordered a feast of pancakes, eggs, bacon, and hot chocolate with extra whipped cream. While we waited for the food, I excused myself to the restroom. Locking the stall door, I finally allowed myself a moment of complete breakdown. Silent sobs shook my body as the full impact of what had just happened washed over me. My own father had rejected not just me but my innocent children, in front of them, without hesitation or remorse. I gave myself exactly 2 minutes to fall apart. Then I washed my face, reapplied minimal makeup, and returned to the table with a smile fixed firmly in place. "Look, Mom, they gave us extra candy canes," Lily exclaimed as our food arrived. I watched my children dive into their pancakes, their resilience both inspiring and heartbreaking. They shouldn't have to be resilient against their own grandfather's cruelty. They shouldn't have to learn so young that family can hurt you worst of all. As we ate our alternative holiday meal, I felt something shifting inside me. Beneath the hurt and humiliation, anger began to simmer. Not just for myself, but for Lily and Noah. My children deserved better than a lifetime of conditional love and emotional manipulation. And suddenly, with perfect clarity, I realized that I deserved better too. After our impromptu brunch celebration, we returned home to our small but comfortable house. The very house my father had helped with the down payment on, a fact he never failed to mention whenever I expressed an opinion he disliked. "Why don't you two build a blanket fort in the living room and watch a holiday movie?" I suggested, needing a few moments alone. "I'll make some hot cocoa in a bit." While they happily dragged couch cushions and blankets into elaborate configurations, I retreated to the bathroom, closed the door, and sat on the edge of the bathtub. For the first time since leaving my parents' house, I allowed myself to really feel everything. The humiliation of being turned away at the door like an unwanted salesperson. The pain of seeing my children's confusion. The familiar sting of my sister's mocking laughter. The absence of my mother's intervention. All of it crashed over me in waves until I could barely breathe. But beneath the pain, something else was emerging. A clarity I'd never fully embraced before. This wasn't an isolated incident, but the culmination of a lifelong pattern. My father had always used approval and financial support as tools of control. My mother had always enabled his behavior while offering just enough comfort to keep me coming back. My sister had always positioned herself as the good daughter at my expense, and I had always allowed it, believing somehow that I deserved the treatment or could eventually earn their unconditional love if I just tried harder. A memory surfaced from the depths of my mind. My father standing in this very house before I moved, in his hand resting possessively on the kitchen counter. "I want you to remember something, Anna," he'd said. "When your artistic lifestyle fails, as these things inevitably do, this house will still be here because of me. My investment. My protection. Don't forget that." At the time, I'd been so grateful for the help that I'd overlooked the threat embedded in his generosity. But it had always been there, hadn't it? The implicit understanding that his financial support came with ownership of my choices, my life, my very self-worth. Another memory followed, opening my banking app to find an unexpected deposit after Lily needed emergency dental work last year. "Your mother and I noticed the dental bill," my father had said during our next visit. "Clearly you're struggling to manage essential expenses. We've added something to help. You really should be more careful with money, Anna." I hadn't questioned how he knew about the dental bill. Hadn't thought it strange that he mentioned the exact amount. Hadn't considered why I still had a joint account with my parents at 37 years old. With sudden, startling clarity, I pulled out my phone and logged into my bank account. There it was. The joint savings account my father had insisted I maintain for emergencies. The account where occasional deposits would appear when I was struggling most, always followed by increased expectations and control. My father had complete visibility into my financial life. Every purchase, every bill, every struggle laid bare for his judgment. The realization made me physically ill. This wasn't help. It was surveillance. It wasn't support. It was leverage. With shaking hands, I called the bank. "I need to freeze activity on a joint account immediately," I told the representative. "No withdrawals or transfers until I can come in person to remove myself from the account." "We can do that, ma'am," the representative replied, "but all account holders will be notified of the freeze." "I understand," I said, feeling a strange sense of liberation despite knowing what would follow. "Please proceed." After hanging up, I found an old journal and began writing, pouring out years of manipulations, subtle cruelties, and emotional blackmail that I'd normalized or excused. Seeing it on paper in my own handwriting made the pattern undeniable. This wasn't love. It had never been love. My phone rang, startling me from my writing. It was Maria, a friend I'd met at the community art center. "Hey, weren't you doing that family brunch thing today? How'd it go?" she asked cheerfully. I hesitated, then found myself telling her everything. The rejection at the door, the children's confusion, my emerging realizations about the financial control. "Anna," Maria said after listening without interruption, "what you're describing isn't normal family tension. It's emotional abuse." The word landed like a physical blow. Abuse. I'd never applied that term to my family dynamic before. "But they've helped me financially," I protested weakly, "especially after the divorce. And they use that help to control you, right? To make you feel forever indebted and never quite good enough." I fell silent, unable to deny the truth of her assessment. "Money given with strings attached isn't generosity," Maria continued gently. "It's just another form of control. And exposing your kids to people who treat you this way teaches them that love is conditional, that they have to earn basic respect." As her words sank in, my phone buzzed with an incoming call. My mother's name flashed on the screen. "I have to go," I told Maria quickly. "That's my mom calling now." "Remember who you are," Maria said before hanging up, "not who they've told you you are." Taking a deep breath, I answered my mother's call, unprepared for the confrontation that would change everything. "Anna, what on earth is going on?" My mother's voice held that familiar blend of concern and accusation. "The bank just sent a notification about the account being frozen." "I'm making some changes," I replied, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. "I should have done it years ago." "What are you talking about? Your father set that account up to help you. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us by causing problems." The irony of her concern about the bank account rather than the fact that they'd turned away her grandchildren hours earlier wasn't lost on me. "Is that Anna?" My father's voice boomed in the background. A rustling sound followed as he apparently took the phone. "What do you think you're doing? Unfreeze that account immediately." "No," I said simply. The silence that followed was so profound, I briefly wondered if the call had dropped. "What did you just say to me?" His voice had dropped to the dangerous, quiet tone I remembered from childhood, the one that had always made me backpedal and apologize. But something had shifted inside me. The bank account was just the beginning. I said no. "I'm removing myself from that account on Monday." I'm also going to refinance the house to remove your name from it, even if it stretches me financially. Have you lost your mind? After that embarrassing scene you caused at our home today? Now this, what exactly do you think you're doing? Scene, I repeated incredulous. You refused to let your grandchildren into your home for a family holiday. You humiliated them. And you think I caused a scene? You showed up looking like a charity case, he snapped. Bradley's parents were there. Do you have any idea how awkward that would have been? Your sister and her family know how to present themselves properly. I heard Jasmine's voice in the background, though I couldn't make out her words. Put me on speakerphone, I demanded. If you're going to talk about me with Jasmine, at least have the decency to let me hear it. Surprisingly, he complied. The audio quality changed, and suddenly I could hear movement and voices in what I assumed was their living room. Can you believe this, Diana? My father was saying. After everything we've done for her. Anna, honey, my mother's placating voice took over. You're upset about today. I understand. But that's no reason to make rash financial decisions. You know how emotional you can be. This isn't emotional, Mom. It's the most clear-headed I've been in years. I took a deep breath. I've just realized something important. I've been looking through my bank statements. How long have you and Dad been monitoring my spending? Another telling silence. It's a joint account, my father finally said, his tone defensive. Of course we can see the transactions. That's the point, to make sure you're not making poor decisions with money. I'm 37 years old. I don't need financial supervision. Clearly you do, Jasmine chimed in. Spending money on art supplies when Noah needed new soccer cleats last month? Real responsible Anna. I froze. How could she know that specific detail unless... You all sit around discussing my purchases. The realization made me nauseated. What else do you monitor in my life? We're trying to help you, my mother insisted. After the divorce, you were so unstable. I was grieving the end of my marriage, I countered. Not unstable, and that was 3 years ago. Listen carefully. My father's voice hardened. That house you're sitting in, I made the down payment. The account you just froze. That's my money in there. The private school your children attend. Our tuition assistance. You want to talk about monitoring? Fine. But remember what happens if our support disappears. The threat hung in the air, familiar, but somehow less frightening than it would have been hours earlier. I'd rather struggle financially than live another day under your control, I said quietly. I'm done. Don't be dramatic, Jasmine scoffed. Where will you go? What will you do? You can barely support yourself and those kids on your art teacher salary. I'll figure it out, I said with more confidence than I felt. People do it every day without rich parents controlling their lives. You ungrateful little, my father began. Richard, my mother cautioned. No, Diana. She needs to hear this. Anna, you have 24 hours to come apologize in person and unfreeze that account, or you can consider all financial support permanently ended. That includes the house, your choice. In the past, this ultimatum would have terrified me into immediate compliance. Now it felt like the final confirmation that I was making the right decision. My choice, I repeated slowly. That's exactly right, Dad. For once, this is my choice, not yours. I ended the call before they could respond, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my fingertips. My hands shook as I set down the phone, but for the first time in memory, it wasn't from fear. It was from exhilaration. From the doorway came a small voice. Mom, are you okay? I turned to find Lily standing there, concern etched on her young face. How much had she heard? Come here, sweetie. I opened my arms, and she ran into them. I'm better than okay. I just remembered something important that I'd forgotten for a long time. What did you remember? I smoothed her hair, choosing my words carefully. That love shouldn't come with strings attached. Real love means accepting people as they are. Noah appeared behind his sister. Was that Grandpa on the phone? Is he still mad at us? Grandpa isn't mad at you, I assured him, opening my arm to include him in the hug. He's dealing with his own complicated feelings. But I want you both to know something important. You are perfect exactly as you are. You never have to earn love or change who you are to deserve respect. Never. As I held my children, I realized I wasn't just saying these words for them. I was finally saying them for myself, too. The next morning began a whirlwind of activity that would reshape our lives. My first stop was the bank where I formally removed myself from the joint account shared with my parents. The bank manager's expression remained professionally neutral when I explained I needed complete financial separation from my family, but her eyes held understanding. "Would you like to open an independent account with us?" she asked after completing the paperwork. "Yes," I replied, "one that's solely in my name with no possibility of outside access." Next came a meeting with a lawyer I found through a legal aid program. I couldn't afford expensive legal counsel, but I needed to understand my options regarding the house. The down payment my father had contributed represented approximately 20% of the property value. Legally speaking, unless his name is on the deed, or there was a formal loan agreement, a gift is a gift, the lawyer explained. However, he could potentially make a case for partial ownership if he can demonstrate the money was intended as an investment rather than a gift. "He'll definitely claim that," I said grimly. "Then we document everything. Every manipulative comment, every threat, every instance of financial control. Courts generally don't look favorably on these types of power dynamics in family financial disputes." As I left the lawyer's office with a folder of information and next steps, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. "Is this Anna Thompson?" a woman's voice asked when I answered. "Yes, who's this?" "It's your Aunt Susan, your father's sister." I nearly dropped the phone in shock. Aunt Susan had been estranged from our family for as long as I could remember. My father had forbidden any contact with her, calling her unstable and problematic. "How did you get my number?" I asked cautiously. "Your mother gave it to me years ago in case of emergency. She called me last night very upset about some confrontation between you and your father. I've been debating whether to call you all morning." I pulled into a coffee shop parking lot, needing to focus on this unexpected conversation. "Why would Mom call you Dad?" always said that I was mentally unstable, a disgrace to the family, untrustworthy. She gave a dry laugh. "I'm sure he had choice words. The truth is much simpler. I refuse to let him control my life, just as you're apparently doing now." Over the next hour, sitting in my parked car with cooling coffee, Aunt Susan filled in gaps in my family history that I'd never known existed. How my father had tried to dictate her career, her marriage, her life choices. How she'd finally broken free at 32, accepting financial hardship over continued emotional manipulation. How he'd rewritten the narrative to make her the villain. "Your mother reaches out occasionally, always in secret," Susan explained. "I think a part of her admires that I escaped, even if she never found the courage to do it herself." "Why are you telling me all this now?" "Because you deserve to know you're not alone, and because I want to help if you'll let me. I don't have much money, but I have experience breaking free from your father's control, and I have a spare bedroom if you and the kids ever need it." The offer of support from this virtual stranger who was also family brought unexpected tears to my eyes. "Thank you," I managed. "I might take you up on that." After hanging up, I sat in stunned silence, processing this new perspective on my family history. Then my phone chimed with a text message from an unexpected source, James, my ex-husband. "Heard from Maria that you're going through some stuff with your parents. The kids okay? Can I help?" The simple offer, without judgment or agenda, moved me deeply. Our post-divorce relationship had been cordial but distant. Yet here he was, reaching out when I needed support. I called him immediately, and to my surprise found myself pouring out the whole story. From the rejection at the door to the financial manipulation to my newfound determination to break free. "I always knew your dad was controlling," James said when I finished. "But I never realized how deep it went. For what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing, and I want to help." Maybe I can take the kids some extra days while you sort things out, or help with the refinancing paperwork. His support cracked something open inside me. That would be amazing, I admitted. The kids could use the stability right now. They've got it. We're still a family, Anna, just in a different configuration. I've got your back on this. After hanging up, I sat in my car and wept, but not from sadness. These were tears of relief of discovering that when one support system fell away, another could emerge in its place. That evening, I had a gentle conversation with Lily and Noah about the changes happening in our family. Their school counselor had agreed to see them next week to help process their feelings about the rejection they'd experienced. "So we won't see Grandma and Grandpa for a while?" Noah asked, his face serious. "Probably not for some time," I confirmed. "Sometimes grown-ups need space from each other to figure things out." "Like you and Dad did?" Lily asked perceptively. "Something like that, yes. But Dad's still our dad, even though you don't live together," Noah reasoned. "Will Grandma and Grandpa still be our grandparents?" I pulled them both close. "They will always be your grandparents. Nothing changes that. But right now, we need to focus on building our own special family traditions. Speaking of which," I pulled out construction paper, scissors, and glue. "How about we make our own holiday decorations this year? Something that's just ours." As we crafted paper snowflakes and hand-drawn ornaments, I marveled at children's resilience. They had questions and confusion, certainly, but they also had an innate understanding of authentic love versus conditional approval that many adults never achieve. Later that night, after tucking them in, I received a surprising call from my elderly neighbor, Mrs. Gallagher. "Anna, dear, I couldn't help but notice you all missed the family gathering yesterday. Everything all right?" I hesitated, then opted for honesty. "Not really, Mrs. Gallagher. We're going through some family changes." "Well, that settles it then. You and those beautiful children are coming to my place for Christmas dinner. No arguments. My daughter and her family will be here, and her kids are right around your two's ages. It'll be wonderful." Her casual kindness, offered without expectation of return, nearly undid me. "That's very generous of you." "Nonsense. It's what neighbors do. Now, do your little ones like pumpkin or apple pie better? I want to plan accordingly." By the time I went to bed that night, I had received more genuine support than I could have imagined possible just 24 hours earlier. It wasn't coming from the sources I'd always sought it from, but perhaps that was the most important lesson of all. 2 weeks passed in relative calm. I threw myself into preparations for Christmas, determined to make it special for Lily and Noah, despite our limited budget. James took them shopping to buy me a gift. Aunt Susan sent a package of handmade ornaments and family recipes I'd never seen before. The community center where I taught art held a staff potluck where everyone deliberately made extra food for me to take home. I'd begun to believe we might actually make it through the holidays without further confrontation, when a loud knock came at our door one Saturday morning. Through the peephole, I saw my father standing on the porch, his posture rigid with barely contained anger. Behind him in the driveway, my mother and Jasmine waited in his luxury SUV. Taking a deep breath, I opened the door but remained firmly in the threshold, blocking entry. "Dad, this is unexpected." "This has gone on long enough," he said without preamble. "You've made your point with this little rebellion. It's time to be reasonable and return to normal family relations." "Normal?" I repeated. "You mean where you control me through money and I pretend it's love? That's not normal, Dad. That's manipulation." His jaw tightened. "Don't be dramatic. We've supported you when you couldn't support yourself. When that art career predictably failed. When your marriage fell apart. We stepped in because that's what family does. Real family supports without keeping score. Without using that support as a weapon." "A weapon, is that what you think?" he scoffed. "Your mother is heartbroken. The grandchildren she loves are suddenly gone. Christmas is approaching. All because you're having some sort of midlife crisis." From the car, my mother watched, her expression unreadable. Jasmine pretended to be busy on her phone. "I've spoken with the bank. my father continued, shifting tactics. The refinancing you're attempting will be difficult with your income. The interest rates alone will be prohibitive, but I'm willing to be generous despite your behavior. He reached into his coat and pulled out a check, holding it where I could see the substantial amount written on it. A Christmas gift. For the children. Use it for their tuition or whatever they need. All you have to do is be reasonable about this family dispute. The amount could indeed solve many of my immediate financial concerns, but I recognized it for what it was, a collar, not a gift. No, thank you, I said firmly. His eyebrows shot up in genuine surprise. You can't be serious. You'd deprive your children out of stubbornness. I'd rather teach my children about dignity than give them material things bought with their mother's self-respect. At that moment, Jasmine emerged from the car, approaching with a beautifully wrapped package. Anna, don't be ridiculous. We're family. Families disagree sometimes, but we move past it. Here are the kids' Christmas presents. Designer clothes I knew you couldn't afford for them. The condescension in her voice ignited something fierce within me. You know what, Jasmine, I feel sorry for you. You've spent your entire life perfectly conforming to Dad's expectations, and what has it gotten you? His conditional approval. A marriage that looks perfect on Instagram, but requires you to be someone you're not. Children who will grow up believing love must be earned through performance and appearance. Her smile faltered. That's not true. I have a beautiful life. A beautiful cage is still a cage, and I'm done living in one. I turned back to my father, drawing myself up to my full height. For decades, I've tried to earn your love. I've accepted your help with all its strings attached. I've endured your judgment, your criticism, your constant reminders of my failures. I've allowed you to make me feel small because I believed that's what family meant. Sacrifice, obligation, eternal gratitude for scraps of affection. My father's face darkened. After everything we've done, that's just it, I interrupted. Real love isn't something you do for someone. It's how you make them feel. Valued, accepted, safe. When have you ever made me feel those things without conditions? This idealistic nonsense stops now. He snapped, mask slipping completely. You have children to support, a house payment, responsibilities. You need us whether you want to admit it or not. Need and love aren't the same thing, Dad. I'd rather struggle financially than continue this toxic cycle. I'd rather my children see me stand up for myself than watch me be diminished for material security. You ungrateful little fool, he hissed. That house you're so determined to keep, I can have it tied up in legal proceedings for years. Those private school spots your children enjoy, one call from me to the board. The college funds we've established, gone. Is that what you want? From behind me, a small voice called out, Mom! I turned to see Lily and Noah standing in the hallway, clearly having heard at least part of the confrontation. My heart sank, but then I noticed something unexpected in their expressions. Not fear or confusion, but a strange sort of pride. It's okay, I assured them, then turned back to my father. You've just made my point for me. Love doesn't threaten. Love doesn't punish. Love doesn't keep score. My mother had finally emerged from the car and approached hesitantly. Anna, please. It's Christmas. Can't we just... For a moment I saw something in her eyes, understanding regret. But then she glanced at my father and the shutters came down again. You should go, I said quietly. All of you. When you're ready to have a relationship based on mutual respect instead of control, we can talk. Until then, my children and I deserve better. You'll regret this, my father warned, but the threat sounded hollow now. No, I said with absolute certainty. I won't. I closed the door gently but firmly, then leaned against it, listening to their muffled voices arguing outside. Eventually, car doors slammed and an engine started. Through the window, I watched them drive away, noticing with surprise that Jasmine looked back at the house with an expression I couldn't quite identify. When they were gone, I walked into the living room and collapsed on the couch, emotionally drained but somehow lighter than I'd felt in years. Lily and Noah approached cautiously and sat on either side of me. "Are you okay, Mom?" Noah asked, his small hand finding mine. "I am," I said, surprised to find it was true. "Sometimes standing up for yourself is hard, but it's important." "You were brave," Lily said simply, "like in the stories where the princess saves herself." I pulled them both close, overwhelmed by their simple understanding of what had just happened. "I had good teachers," I said, kissing the tops of their heads. As we sat there together, our homemade paper snowflakes hanging in the windows, I felt the first real peace I'd experienced in decades. The road ahead would be challenging, but for the first time, it was truly mine to travel. 6 months after that confrontational day on my doorstep, our lives had transformed in ways I never could have predicted. The financial challenges I'd feared materialized certainly. Refinancing the house stretched our budget to its limits. Lily and Noah transferred from their private school to the public elementary after the semester ended, just as my father had threatened. But alongside these challenges came unexpected gifts. My position at the Community Art Center expanded to full-time when I proposed an after-school program for underserved youth. James not only maintained his committed co-parenting, but advocated for a fair child support adjustment when he received a modest raise. My freelance artwork, once a side project, found a small but dedicated following through an online gallery that specialized in emerging artists. We weren't wealthy by any conventional definition, but we were making it work. More importantly, we were happier, more authentic, and increasingly confident in our new reality. My relationship with Aunt Susan blossomed from tentative connection into genuine family bond. She visited monthly, bringing stories about my father's childhood that helped me understand, if not excuse, the man he had become. Her own journey to freedom after years under his control provided both practical advice and emotional reassurance when my resolve occasionally wavered. Through Susan, I met her circle of friends, what she called her found family, and witnessed firsthand what healthy, supportive relationships actually looked like. No scorekeeping, no passive-aggressive comments, no conditional acceptance, just people who genuinely enjoyed each other's company and showed up without expectation when help was needed. Your father never understood the difference between possession and love. Susan told me one evening as we shared tea in my kitchen, "He believes people are assets to be managed, not hearts to be nurtured." The children adapted to our new circumstances with remarkable resilience. While they occasionally mentioned missing their grandparents, especially during holidays, they thrived in an environment free from underlying tension. Their new school offered excellent arts programming that fed Lily's creative spirit, and Noah found a community soccer league where the emphasis on fun outweighed the pressure to perform that had characterized his previous team. My mother attempted contact 3 times. The first 2 calls ended quickly when she refused to acknowledge any problematic behavior, insisting I was overreacting to family dynamics that every family has. The third attempt came in the form of an unexpected visit one afternoon when she knew my father would be at a business meeting. "I just want to see my grandchildren," she pleaded on the doorstep. "And I want them to see healthy relationships modeled by the adults in their lives," I replied. "I'm not keeping them from you, Mom. I'm requiring basic respect and boundaries before you can be part of their lives again." "Your father is who he is," she said defensively. "He's not going to change at his age." "Then that's his choice, and I'm making mine." She left frustrated but thoughtful. A week later, a letter arrived in the mail containing no words, just a check for a modest amount that couldn't possibly have come from my father's accounts. Tucked behind it was a photo of me at age 10 smiling broadly after winning an art contest. A contest my father had dismissed as irrelevant, but that my mother had secretly taken me to enter. It wasn't an apology, but it was something. A tiny acknowledgement that perhaps she understood more than she could openly admit. Jasmine's response took a different form. On social media, she crafted a narrative of family betrayal, positioning herself as the dutiful daughter supporting heartbroken parents abandoned by their ungrateful child. The carefully curated photos of family gatherings I was conspicuously absent from might have hurt months ago. Now they simply confirmed I'd made the right decision. Interestingly, Bradley Jasmine's husband reached out privately through a work email. "I've always respected how you marched to your own drummer," he wrote. "Jasmine would kill me if she knew I was contacting you, but I wanted you to know not everyone believes the official family story. Stay strong." The brief message offered unexpected validation from a surprising source. Not everyone was blind to the dynamics I'd finally escaped. As summer transitioned to fall, and the one-year anniversary of our family rupture approached, I found myself reflecting on the journey during an evening walk alone in our neighborhood. The financial stress remained real, but it no longer terrified me. The absence of family traditions created space for new ones we were building ourselves. The periodic waves of grief for what might have been were increasingly outweighed by appreciation for what actually was. That evening I sat down with my journal and wrote what felt like a conclusion to one chapter and the opening of another. A year ago, I believed family meant obligation, enduring emotional pain out of duty, accepting financial help even when it came with invisible chains, teaching my children that love required perfect performance and constant gratitude. Today I understand that real family, whether related by blood or by choice, means safety, acceptance, the freedom to be imperfectly yourself. It means teaching my children that their worth isn't determined by others' approval, but by their own inner compass. We are not rich in the way my father defines wealth. Our house is modest. Our clothes come from Target clearance racks. Our holidays won't feature expensive gifts or lavish meals. But we are rich in authenticity, in laughter that doesn't hide tension, in love that doesn't come with conditions or expectations, in the knowledge that we are enough exactly as we are. My children will grow up with less materially than I had planned, but they will grow up with so much more of what truly matters: confidence in their inherent value, understanding of healthy boundaries, and the knowledge that their mother found her voice and her freedom even when it was the hardest choice to make. As Christmas approached, we prepared for our second holiday season independent from my family of origin. Lily and Noah created handmade ornaments for our small tree. James joined us for cookie baking and promised to coordinate with me so the children received thoughtful gifts rather than excessive ones to compensate for the grandparent absence. Mrs. Gallagher invited us to join her growing holiday gathering, which now included 2 other single-parent families from the neighborhood. The morning of Christmas Eve, an unexpected envelope arrived by courier. Inside was a Christmas card signed by my mother alone with a brief note: "Thinking of you all. The door is always open when you're ready." Tucked inside was a separate, smaller envelope labeled, "For Anna only." Inside that second envelope was a single key, one I recognized as belonging to my mother's private desk, along with a note that read simply, "Some journeys start with small steps. I'm trying to take mine." Tears sprang to my eyes at this tiny indication that perhaps, in her own way, my mother was beginning to understand. It wasn't reconciliation, not yet, but it was a crack in the foundation of the family dynamics that had controlled us all for so long. That evening, as Lily and Noah hung their stockings with exaggerated care, Noah turned to me with unexpected seriousness. "Mom, are you sad about Grandpa and Grandma not being here for Christmas?" I considered his question carefully. "I feel sad sometimes about how things turned out. I wish they could be different people who know how to love without trying to control. But I'm not sad about our life now. I think we're building something really beautiful together." He nodded, accepting this complex answer with surprising maturity. "Me too. And Dad says you're the bravest mom he knows." He said that. Noah nodded. He said sometimes the hardest thing and the right thing are the same thing. From the wisdom of children and the unexpected support of those I'd once pushed away, came the final confirmation that the price of freedom, while high, had been worth every penny. As we gathered that night with our small but meaningful circle of friends, I looked around at these people who loved us without condition or expectation, who showed up not because of obligation, but because of genuine connection, who accepted us exactly as we were, imperfections and all. This, I realized, was what family was supposed to be all along. The price of admission to someone's life should never be your dignity. Real love builds you up, never tears you down. I finally understood that by walking away, I taught my children their most important lesson: how to love themselves enough to be truly free. Have you ever had to choose between comfort and authenticity, between financial security and emotional freedom? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Like and subscribe if this journey resonated with you, and share with someone who might need to hear that they deserve unconditional love too. Thank you for walking this path with me today, and remember, your worth is never determined by someone else's inability to see it.